Well, I guess I'd like to talk about some Supreme Court decisions at some point.
Round four, talk about the Supreme Court. Go ahead, Brian.
So the blueprint Title II is supposed to be a truce on guns and abortion. And Supreme Court kind of threw a monkey wrench into things this last week, both with rulings striking down New York's gun control laws and finding that individuals have a constitutional right to bear arms. And then, of course, striking down Roe versus Wade and saying people don't have a right to an abortion. So I've been trying to figure, like, what does that mean? How does that affect the truce? Does that mean the truce is still like nobody's interested? Or does it mean that, I don't know, what a truce, everybody gets and gives something up? So the Hyde Amendment gets codified, saying that the federal government wouldn't spend money on abortion, but no abortion bans or restrictions could be introduced in Congress for 10 years. And then on the gun side, I think we talked about would be universal background checks, but no gun restrictions could be, or bans could be introduced for 10 years. And so does that still hold up in light of these Supreme Court decisions? And so I'm kind of, I don't know. I guess 6 months ago, I didn't think that this, we're saying that Congress couldn't introduce abortion bans or abortion restrictions. That was kind of like seemed kind of hollow because there wasn't any realistic proposals to do that. Whereas now it's like a thing. Like you give the mouse a piece of cheese and then they're going to want some wine. So you give they got the constitutional right struck down. So now, because Democrats didn't codify a right to an abortion for the last 50 years, now there's the possibility that they could have a national ban. And so does that make it more appealing to take that ban off the table at the same time that you would take a gun ban off the table? I don't know.
Yeah, right. This is a pro-life issue here.
I thought the brilliance of the blueprint was that it just took both of them out of the equation for 10 years and gave us 10 years to work on the conditions that feed those, the guns and the abortions. Gun death and abortion is driven by issues that the blueprint addresses. And so the idea was if we can hold this off for 10 years, we can get it done. But
so is your question like about the blueprint, about whether these points are still viable points? Is that your question?
I think that, yeah, that's kind of the question.
To me, the answer I would say would be they kind of knocked the hole in it.
And so what's the middle ground that people can that we can create, that we can find?
Supreme Court has already done what legal recourse can we have?
Once again, Congress can act. Congress can set
Okay.
national standards. They just
Okay.
have chosen not to do it for the last a side tangent, but this is one of the many issues where Congress has failed to act. So the court stepped in and then Congress decided not to do anything. There's all sorts of programs like qualified immunity. Congress could fix it. They didn't. And so the Supreme Court makes this up. Like,
I wasn't aware that Congress could reverse. I'm sure I've heard that, but somehow it didn't stick in my brain that Congress could reverse what the court did. But if that's the case, then my God, we need to put some pressure on them to get them to do it. And then you have a way to do that.
I remember now what it was. You can improve rights, but you can't remove rights. Under this legislation, you could still pass the law to codify that it's a woman's right. And so you can still pass that under this agreement, but you couldn't take more rights away. Under this agreement, you can't remove rights, but you can add.
You can't restrict access to abortion for 10 years, and you can't restrict access to guns for 10 years, but you could loosen those restrictions. So
Right.
you could still codify Roe and a woman's right to the right to an abortion. And you could loosen gun restrictions, but you couldn't restrict them. So that's what you were thinking of?
Yep.